日本語の勉強を始めるとき、やっぱりカナを習うのが自然な第一歩だけど、最高の生徒になれるために一番効果的な方法について学ぼう。Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So in this video I'm going to talk about kana and sounds a little bit more. In my last video I suggested starting learning Japanese with kana and the phonetics. So if you haven't watched that video, do go and watch that. But in today's video I'm going to try and break that down a little bit further so that you have all the information that you need to learn kana and the phonetics, and any possible troubles that you have should be solved, hopefully. So I guess the most logical place to start with the kana and the sounds again will be where I left off in the last video, which is the sounds. So in the last video I went through the da sound and the da, di, du, de, do sounds of that line of kana, and also the hu sound. Those sounds are often mispronounced, and they're definitely important to learn how to say correctly. And today I'm going to talk more about the other sounds. So we'll start with the vowels. So in Japanese there's only 5 vowels. So that's substantially less than English, which makes it a lot easier to pronounce words in terms of vowels. So the only vowels in Japanese are a, I, U, E, O. They're the only vowels, so you don't need to learn or use any other vowels in any words in Japanese. So there are a few difficulties that you might run into with vowels. So with vowels, they can be elongated. So you can have a kana say ta, and then it's followed by another kana, which is a. That will be pronounced ta, not ta. So you have to be careful to elongate the vowel, otherwise it might turn into a different word, which you don't want, obviously. So that's basically it with vowels. And so another sound group that people very frequently mispronounce is the compound sound group. So we have words like Tokyo and Kyoto and gyoza. Those are all mispronunciations of the Japanese words. So when you have a compound sound in Japanese, it becomes one sound. So instead of Kyoto, it will be pronounced Kyo, Kyoto, not Kyo. And it's the same with gyoza. It's not gyoza or gyoza, it's gyo, gyoza. So that's very important to know whenever you see the compound sounds, which I'll get into later with the kana. Make sure you pronounce them as one sound. So once you've got the sounds down, so again with the last video, the da, fu, long vowels and compound sounds, you're good to go with the sounds of Japanese. So the next thing to talk about, I guess, would be the order in which you should learn kana. So this might be a little bit controversial because most guides and tutorials online will tell you to start with hiragana first, because it is the main writing system for Japanese in terms of kana. And I actually disagree with that recommendation. I think it's wiser to start with katakana first. So my first reason to start with katakana is that typically it's more difficult. And it sounds counterintuitive to start with something that's more difficult, but more difficult doesn't mean too difficult. So I 100% think that you should start with katakana and then learn hiragana. So the reason katakana is a little more challenging is because they all look more similar to each other than hiragana do. There's a lot of repeated shapes in katakana that you have to look out for, but once you know them, it's going to serve you a lot better. Another big reason to start with katakana is because a lot of foreign words that you will be used to are written in katakana. For example, if you want to read a menu, most food items is going to be written in katakana. So if you learn katakana first, you can use it straight away with your favorite Japanese restaurant maybe, or something along those lines. Another reason is foreign names for movies and people are almost always written in katakana as well, especially if they've used a borrowed word to title that movie. So your name included will be written in katakana. So if you learn katakana first, you'll be able to read a lot of foreign names, people that you're familiar with, and you'll be able to write down your name and read menus. So I think katakana is a great place to start, and then move on to hiragana, which will almost certainly be easier. So what's the best way of learning kana? For me, I used a mnemonic technique. So you just take the kana itself and you assign a picture that helps you remember the kana. So there's a lot of mnemonic sheets available online, and I'll link some in the description to help. So basically how it works is that you will take a kana, say for example shi, and assign a little picture with it that helps you remember. So in the case of she, the most common one is she has long hair. So that you'll remember that phrase, and you'll remember that it looks like a woman with long hair, and that'll hopefully sear into your brain and you'll remember it that way. So each kana, because katakana and hiragana look different, they each have different sets of mnemonics. But for me, mnemonics were definitely the best way to learn kana. They just help get it stuck into your brain. So I would suggest doing mnemonics line by line. To start with a, I, u, e, o. Find the mnemonics for that, memorize them, and then move on to the next line. I would suggest that this can be done quite quickly. You can probably learn hiragana and katakana in total in about a month if you really practice hard and keep up the consistency. So once you've assigned the mnemonics to each line, I would suggest downloading a flashcard app so you can practice whenever you can. Essentially, you don't have to do long practices. You can do it in 5-minute, 10-minute groups, and just test yourself that way. So there's plenty of apps on both app stores that will have learning kana flashcards. So strongly recommend you download those to really get a handle on the kana. So you'll inevitably encounter some issues learning kana, and I'll try and go over the ones that I could foresee you running into with kana, because a lot of these kana tutorials don't go into depth with some of these difficulties. So some of the problems you'll face, there's diacritics in Japanese, which are called dokuten. So dokuten are the two little lines. So if you see a kana and it has two little lines just above it, you actually pronounce it differently. But it's really simple. What you'll do is you'll take, say, the ta line. You take ta, if it has dokuten on it, you pronounce it da. So all you do is change from voiceless to a voiced consonant. So ta to da, sa to za. So su with dokuten becomes zu, and so on and so forth. So quite easy. If you see two lines, pronounce it with the voiced version. The second one is called han dokuten, and this is kind of a semi-voiced sound, and it only happens on the ha line. So ha, hi, hu, he, ho, and it's basically a little circle. If you see a little circle above the kana, you pronounce that with a P sound. So ha becomes pa, and so on. So pa, pi, pu, he, po. So they're your P sounds, and that one is called han dokuten. So they're the only two diacritics that you'll find in Japanese, and diacritics are just little markings above letters so that you know how to pronounce them in a different way. Another thing you'll run into is called a sokuon. So basically, sokuon is a small tsu symbol, and you kind of think of it as a skipped beat in the word. So Japanese words, each kana will be pronounced in an equal spacing. for example, to present something is happyō suru. So it's actually ha, small, tsu, pyo. So it's not happyō. If you see a tsu, happyō. So that's how that works. You can count them out if it's difficult. So happyō. That's what I often do if I'm learning a new word with the sokuon in there. I count out the beats of each word and then speed it up. That'll get you a good sort of handle on it. Another word that you always hear, yappari, is the same. Ya-pa-ri. So yappari, yappari, yappari. Or another one is bikkuri, which is to be surprised. Bikkuri shita, bikkuri, 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 bikkuri shita, bikkuri shita. So you say it with the skipped beat. So the last one in terms of differences in writing is called the chompu, which is a katakana. It's only found in katakana. If you have a long vowel in katakana, again, say ramen, you will have the chompu line. So it's, instead of going ra-a-me-n, it'll be ra-a-me-n. If you see a long line in a katakana word, it's just an elongated vowel. And if it's written in horizontal Japanese, the line will be horizontal. And if it's written in vertical Japanese, it will be a vertical line. So keep that in mind. If you see that, it's just a long vowel. So the last difficulty, and the one that I struggle the most with katakana, is the differences between shi, tsu, and so, n. So these kana, as you can see, are very, very similar looking. From trial and error, I would suggest remembering them how I do. So we'll take shi and tsu, for example. Shi and tsu both have the two lines and the curved line. But if you look at them closely, you'll notice that shi is, the lines face one end of the curve, and tsu, the lines will face the opposite end of that curved line. This is also a difference when you write it. You will do it in a different order. So definitely important to keep that in mind, and it makes reading and learning them a lot easier. If you just remember which one has the lines pointing which way, it makes it a lot easier to remember, along with the mnemonics, of course. So when you're writing these symbols as well, just exaggerate. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you can exaggerate the ways in which they're pointing, it makes it a lot easier to remember which one is which. So basically that wraps up this video. I hope it helps. Kana is a very important stepping stone, and once you master kana, I think you'll feel enthusiastic about learning Japanese and moving on to the next step, which would be words and grammar, which is good because then you can start making sentences. So until my next video again, ja mata ne.